I'd first like to demonstrate one of the problems we're trying to solve. In this example interface, I can use a stylus to draw some simple shapes like this. Next, with one finger, I can move an individual shape, or if I press a single finger on the background, I can translate the entire viewport. With two fingers, I can perform a pinch gesture, and this allows me to scale, rotate, and translate a single shape, or if I pinch on the background, I can zoom and translate the entire viewport. Now let's pretend that there's some interesting details on these shapes that I want to examine. So I zoom in by pinching on the background. I zoom into a single shape, like so. Now I can see the details. And now if I want to zoom out, well, I'm sort of trapped because there's no more background that's visible. There's no background on which to perform a pinch gesture to zoom out. The only thing I can do to get out of this situation is to pinch on the shape itself, which actually scales the shape rather than zooming. And now that there's some background that's visible, I can zoom out for real now. And you can see what happened. My shape got really small. So we'd like a better way to distinguish between the two uses of the pinch gesture. And one approach would be to add a toolbar on the side where I could switch between two different modes. But that might not be very convenient to get to if I have a really big multi-touch surface like a multi-touch table or wall. So here's one version of our solution that we propose. In this interface, if I put down a single finger, there's a menu that pops up with commands I can select from. To manipulate an object here, a shape, there's a three-step process. First step, I put my finger down on the object I want to manipulate. Second step, I select the command, which in this case is manipulate. Third step, my two fingers provide the arguments to control that command. I can do all that with a single hand, just by positioning my fingers appropriately to grab the command in the menu. In the same menu to the north, there's a camera command which allows me to pan and zoom the entire viewport. So just like in my earlier scenario, I could zoom in on a single shape to examine some details, and now I'm not trapped like I was earlier. I can still zoom out simply by getting to the appropriate command in the menu. There's a few other commands in our menu. For example, there's an eastern item to make a copy of an object. After copying, my two fingers can manipulate the copy to scale, rotate, and translate it. I can also change the color of a shape, so I can give this shape more green, give this one more blue. And in the menu to the west, there's a lasso command which allows us to select multiple shapes. A few things to note about the menu. In the center, there's actually a default command. You can see the name of it there is ink. And the way the user invokes that command is to simply press and drag. This allows the user to create shapes quickly. A second thing to note is that, let's say I wanted to manipulate this shape over here. A natural thing would be to position my fingers this way. But the way our menu is designed, you actually have to position your fingers this way first. So first finger down on the shape, second finger down here. And this might seem like an odd positioning of the fingers, but once you're in this mode, you're actually free to reposition your fingers. As long as you keep one finger in contact with the screen, you stay in this manipulate mode and you can reposition your fingers. Same thing with the camera command. Once you're in camera mode, you're free to swap fingers and reposition them, and you remain in that mode. Finally, because we can distinguish between finger and stylus, you can double the number of commands accessible. So for example, finger could launch one menu, and then stylus could be used to complete the command. And the stylus could launch a different menu, which could double the number of commands available to you. Here's a second version of our solution. Now, in the menu, the items have been duplicated so that the menu is now symmetrical. You can see in the north and the south we have the same camera command. In the east and west we have the same lasso command. And in the northeast and southwest we have the same manipulate command. This allows the user to select commands faster because they don't need to be careful about which finger touches first. For example, to get to the camera command, it doesn't matter if my thumb touches first or if my index finger touches first, the result is the same. I just need to be careful about the orientation of a line connecting my fingers, in this case vertical, to get to the camera command. Let's say we want to draw a house, so we add a little roof here. We can add a sidewall. Now, if I open up the menu, of course, to get to a command, I press on the corresponding pie slice. I can also press outside the menu, and that allows me to invoke the ink command on each of my fingers. So I can easily draw some grass or add a little forest here. And then with the lasso command, one way I can lasso select is to encircle the strokes that I'm interested in, like that. And now that they're selected, I can go grab the manipulate command in the menu. And so with 2 fingers, I can scale or rotate my selection. Another way I can use the lasso command is to simply drag out a rectangle. So for example, I can drag out this rectangle, and then the system selects whatever's in that rectangle, like that. So the system's smart enough to infer whether I'm encircling things I want to select or I'm dragging out the diagonal of a rectangle. It figures that out by looking at the shape of my stroke. Another thing to note is that the north and south items here, the camera pie slices, are much more extensive radially than the other ones. That's because of the way a user uses the camera command. If they want to zoom in, they'll naturally start with their fingertips close together and then spread them apart. But if they want to zoom out, it's natural to start with fingertips far apart. So we made the pie slices for camera long enough radially to capture distant fingers in a command like that. And then finally, you'll see in the menu there's a more command. That's to open up a submenu. And in there, there's options to perform other operations. Like I can change the color of my selection. So the grass I selected earlier, I could make that grass green. I could select my house and then change it to be, let's say, purple. I can also make a copy of the house, and with another finger I can scale down that copy. I can flip it from left to right, make another copy, change the color of that. And so by holding open the submenu here, I can invoke multiple commands on the same selection.